No matter how far you have traveled in this world, listener, you have never gone over the edge of its map. What is an unintentional boundary between that which is known and that which lies beyond the knowledge of man. But I have made this journey and will share it with you if permitted. Great wonders awaited me outside of the earth, as they now do you, should my listener have the courage to therefrom depart. Coming. This is the Endless Elsewhere podcast. We began our second season with this quote. It comes from the second in a trilogy of mysterious old books that are largely the subject of this podcast. These chronicle a series of events that will upend your understanding of history as well as reality itself. The man who collected and published these manuscripts regarded them as factual, and so we investigated them as such when he became my partner in all this. Along the way, however, the pair of us got pulled into the story, as returning listeners well know. For anyone new here, I'm Lindsay, my co-host is Joseph, and delving into forbidden realms of the phantasmal and the fantastic is our bread and butter. Now, in addition to this podcast, I have my own late-night paranormal radio show, an AM program called Circle City Supernatural. It was primarily focused on taking the calls of locals who'd experienced the, what else, supernatural. In fact, it was just such a call that kicked off this podcast. However, those calls had all but vanished now, and it was because of this podcast. In an effort not to rehash all of Season 1 and what is supposed to be a recap of Season 2, I will say only that this city had been under a monstrous curse until it was finally lifted with the assistance of my partner and I. Doing so, however, almost got my radio show canceled. With no more supernatural in Circle City, there wasn't much need for a show called Circle City Supernatural. But our town wasn't entirely free of the otherworldly. At the end of our maiden season, we had been sent an extraordinary video. It was footage of a portal. Yes, that's right, a portal opening, and of winged figures coming through it. We couldn't be sure it was real. That is, until people started witnessing these visitors from another planet. And fortunately for me, they called my show about it. Thus, Circle City Supernatural got some new, much-needed lifeblood. Mine had been a show concerned with the monstrous, but now, well, now it was all about the alien.
I've heard people calling your show about these, angel strangers. Stranger angels? Strangels?
Yeah, I saw the Strangel.
I just saw the Strangels.
Who hasn't seen the Strangels?
Strangel?
Strangel.
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 My callers witnessed and then named these winged humanoids what was an almost inadvertent portmanteau of stranger and angel. So, who were these Strangels? What were they doing here? What did they want? All questions shared by yet another mysterious group who'd come to our city. Calls also started coming in about oddly dressed and oddly speaking men and women who seemed to be hunting the aliens. These were government spooks, no doubt, or for those of you who joined us in Season 1, these were operatives of a shadowy secret society we refer to simply as the Cabal. Oh, and this organization is none too happy with me or my partner. Those books I mentioned at the top, and now this podcast, both function as a damning expose of this global oligarchy, revealing their past deeds and their future plans. You see, they know all about this portal, and surprise, surprise, they want to control it, which brings us back to that video we'd been sent. Well, months after emailing it to us, the person responsible for shooting the footage reached out, wanting to speak. They consented to an interview, so long as we withheld their identity. This person knew well to fear the Cabal. Even still, they'd come bravely forward to relate their experience to us. So that's when the portal appeared?
It came out of nowhere, and I absolutely mean nowhere. You saw the video. When it happened, it was like the world or reality or whatever was suddenly revealed to be nothing more than a picture. The picture was then torn open from the back. It really messes with your head to see it, believe me. So the portal opens and it's total chaos. There's all this noise and wind. I'd compare it to a storm, but storms tend to be dark. And this thing here was just so bright. I kept on filming, of course. I was too scared to run, but I had enough sense to hide, and I'm glad I did too, because that's when the first of those things came through. It looked like a person at first, but then I saw that it had wings. And I was like, nope, not a person.
Our informant went on to tell us that the Strangels flew off after this. Flew off from what was an abandoned iron foundry. This is where the portal had opened, then closed, so Joseph and I went to check it out. It was there that we crossed paths with one of those mysterious operatives. He identified himself as Fivecoat, a member of something called the U.S. Department of Heartland Security, a new government agency, what was clearly a creation of the Cabal. As such, this Fivecoat knew who we were, said he was even a listener of my radio show and now this podcast.
What are you doing here?
Same as you. Investigating. My work is actually classified, but just between us friends, I'm here conducting an operation to capture some illegals. We can't have undocumented aliens running around town, am I right?
That's so thinly veiled, I'm not sure it even counts as a euphemism.
That's funny. I like you, both of you. You're a good match. Good chemistry. Boys, if you'd be so kind.
Who are you talking to? There's no one else here.
Lindsay?
Joseph and I were suddenly spotted in red. These were laser sights. The rafters were full of hidden snipers. As it turns out, the entire foundry and the surrounding area were under careful surveillance by this Heartland security. They were staking the place out, waiting for the Strangels to return. But if my partner and I were to do so, we'd be arrested. Joseph and I should have been taken into custody right then, but we'd somehow earned an indulgence. Fivecoat made it sound like we had helped his employers, which didn't make sense as we were firmly their enemy. Regardless, the operative turned us loose with only a warning. Joseph told me that the formation of Heartland Security was a much bigger deal than I realized. It was spoken of by the Dreamcatcher. This is a device that sends stories from the future back to us here in the present. Not to worry, listener, we'll get back to that later. For now, it was another machine we needed to discuss, something called the PX-39. This was in the possession of the Cabal and tracked the opening of wormholes, which is how they had discovered where the aliens came through the portal. This device was also a creation of Dr. Fredrick Hardesty, who we met last season. Joseph then realized what the Cabal had, that the Strangels had wisely left the portal's key behind. The key between worlds was a small spherical artifact. The aliens had not brought this with them to Earth to keep it from being captured should they have been. This meant their only way home was to rendezvous back at the foundry at some appointed time, and that's why Heartland Security was there. They were waiting for the Strangels to come back, but moreover for the portal to open, the plan being to storm through and take possession of the orb. Then the Cabal, who quietly rules this world, could also rule another. This secret society is clearly evil, we knew that well, but what about these aliens?
Those that are here now may have come in peace, or they could be an advance team, scouts, the vanguard of a coming incursion, who knows. We invaded their world last time, we're still trying to invade their world, so maybe they're planning a preemptive strike of some kind. Oh, sorry, let me turn this off. Oh, dang.
What's wrong?
I'm so sorry, but I have to go.
What? Where? We're kind of in the middle of something here.
Again, I'm sorry. I'll call you later.
My partner abruptly left, which was very unlike him, but I let it go. I went to the station and let Sylvia listen to the day's recordings. Sylvia, of course, is my producer for both the radio show and this podcast. She's also the more sensible of us and made me realize we were in over our heads this time.
Now you guys are picking a fight with the government? This is a whole other animal, Lindsay. Interfering in a federal investigation would be bad enough, but this is serious. Black Ops stuff. If you guys get in their way, they'll bury you.
Yeah, I know.
We need to course correct. Maybe for season 2, you guys can go back to investigating what goes bump in the night. People love that crap. But we absolutely cannot continue in this direction. Agreed? Lindsay.
Yes, Sylvia, I hear you. And I agree. We're out of our depth here. Actually, let's just forget season 2 for now.
Really?
It might be better if we just put the whole show on hiatus. I was about to give up, but then someone called Circle City Supernatural that night. Someone who made me see the truth. Out of the mouths of babes, as they say. Hello, caller. Welcome to Circle City Supernatural.
Hi, I'm Skarlett.
Hello there, Skarlett. Great name, by the way. So what have you got for us?
I like this show, but I like your podcast more. I just wanted to ask, when is the new season coming out?
Well, honestly, kiddo, I'm not really sure. Actually, there may not be one anymore.
Oh, that would be sad. I really like it. I feel like I know you guys, like you're my friends. Is that stupid?
Not at all. That's not even the first time I've heard that today, but it's just a podcast. There's a million more out there. I'm sure you could find even better ones than mine. There's nothing to be sad about.
No, your podcast is different. To me, anyway.
How so, Skarlett?
It proved that regular people can change the world. All they have to do is be brave enough to try. I don't want to stand by anymore as bad things happen. I want to help. I guess I'm asking, how can I be like you, Lindsay?
Oh. Well, Skarlett, I'm not so sure.
You can't stop now, Lindsay. Your motto. You've done the first 2 parts, but you're forgetting the 3rd one. You did good, you fought evil, but now it's time for you to do it all over again. To repeat.
You know what, kiddo? You're absolutely right. I seem to have forgotten that for a minute there. Now fully reinvested, even inspired, I resumed the investigation. With aliens flying about my city, I wanted to know everything about them, so Joseph and I dove into the 2nd book. As a refresher to returning listeners and an introduction to new ones, these books document the life of a genius and adventurer named Pendergast, who had the orb in his possession for a time. The 2nd book details an expedition he led through the portal almost a century earlier. Pendergast traveled to this other planet with his newest chronicler, a man named Jonas Gentry, as well as his daughter Adelaide, and a creation of his called the Bard, what was a Shakespearean-quoting robot. Still here? Okay, good. That's often where we lose people. Anyway, Pendergast once lived in Circle City. It was from here that he set off on his fantastical journey. While he was away, however, his house was torched by the Cabal. You see, Pendergast had belonged to the secret society, but turned on them. In fact, he was to have unearthed the orb on their behalf, but claimed it for himself. So, yeah, they weren't too happy with him. Years before Joseph and I had joined forces, my partner had tried and failed to use information from the 2nd book to discover the Pendergast property, which, after its destruction, had been lost to time. A big part of our podcast has been to prove that the books are true, and so we were actively seeking evidence for them. Finding the main character's old home would have been a smoking gun. I was just then voicing an idea about where Joseph might have gone wrong in his search, when my partner got another one of those secretive calls. Gentry's description makes the estate sound much farther out than it probably is.
I mean, I guess that's possible, but what? Dang.
Who's that?
I gotta go.
No, not again. Come on, Joseph, what is this?
It shouldn't take more than an hour or so.
Where are you going?
Just wait here. I'll be back. We'll pick up where we left off.
Fine.
So you'll wait then?
I'll be here. While he was away, I reviewed the data he'd collected and expounded upon my theory, and it paid off. I pinpointed the location of the long-lost estate. When Joseph returned, I showed him.
You did it, Lindsay. You really did it.
Like I said, all you needed was a fresh pair of eyes.
All I needed was you.
For my trouble, he'd given me a little peck on the cheek. Oh yeah, I should probably mention that there's been something blossoming between us for a while now. But anyway, we went immediately to the place I'd found. It was deep in the woods, in a clearing where stood a tall hill, but was actually the rubble of the fallen mansion long ago reclaimed by nature. It seemed a dead end, but it wasn't. There was a natural cave system that ran beneath the old property, and according to the 2nd book, had been in use by Pendergast. There was a cavern under our feet that had survived the Cabal's attack, but how to get in? How else? A secret passage. It wasn't easy, but we got inside, and there made a startling discovery. Remember that robot I mentioned a bit ago? Well...
Oh, no way.
Joseph, be careful. Hey, wait for me.
Lindsay, my friend, allow me to introduce you to the Bard.
The Bard looked like an antique, but from the future. To make it even more anachronistic, the thing had a medieval-looking breastplate welded to its chest. Joseph told me that while on that interplanetary expedition, the robot had suffered damage. The winged people of this other world, who'd advanced to an era we would compare to our own earthly Middle Ages, had given Pendergast one of their breastplates to mend the robot. Joseph would soon have the idea to take this alien armor with us, to use as a sign to the Strangels. If they recognize their own craftsmanship, the visitors may see us as friends. It was a shot in the dark, but one worth taking. We had to establish communication with these Strangels to find out why they'd come here, and so we took the breastplate, but only after the Bard gave it to us. That's right, we'd thought him all shut down, but that wasn't quite true.
Almost there. Whoa!
Unhand me, gentlemen. By heaven, I'll make a ghost of him that lets me. I stay away.
Wow, it's...
Joseph!
The robot came alive and clamped a hand around my partner's throat, hoisting him into the air. Thankfully, when I asked the bard to release Joseph, he did so. And when I then asked him for the breastplate, the mechanical man once again complied. We then left, telling the robot we'd return to move him out of this place, as it may no longer be safe for him. You see, the bard was so much more special than I've yet said. He was the best surviving example of what was arguably Pendergast's greatest invention, a cosmic ray engine. It was a perpetual clean energy device that powered the robot, and that's how he still functioned after all this time. The Cabal wanted to get their hands on this technology, so we would need to hide the bard. But for now, we had some aliens to contact. Joseph placed the breastplate on the roof of his home and there held a vigil. His hope was that the Strangels would see it from the air as they passed over. He'd been at it for a while with no luck when I came to visit him one night after my show. Maybe we should put some more lights on it, or put it up higher, like on a pole or something.
We could try that, but I think we'd have to...
Let me guess. You gotta go?
I do. I'm sorry.
Secrets are the biggest threat to any relationship. I thought you trusted me. Why won't you let me in on whatever this is? Is there someone you're going to see? It's fine if you are. Just tell me. It's not like we're a...
It's nothing like that.
Then what is it? Why won't you tell me?
Because I'm embarrassed.
What?
I didn't want to change how you see me.
What does that even mean? You don't have to be embarrassed about anything.
It's a job.
A job?
A part-time job, yes. I'm basically on call. They give me a ring and I have to go.
What job? Are you a delivery person or something?
Just the opposite. We deal in removals.
I don't understand.
I'm broke, Lindsay. There. Now you know.
Returning listeners know that Joseph once made his living by collecting and researching extraordinary tales. It was this line of work that had brought him to the Pendergast books, but it was the publishing of this trilogy that would end his career. He'd asserted that they were true and was denounced as a fraud. Joseph became a pariah in the publishing world, and since then had been subsisting off of his savings, but that was now depleted. He lived and worked out of an old bank building, but he was about to be evicted. My partner's world was crumbling around him. I took his face in my hands, promising that we'd figure it out. Then he grabbed me, pulled me in for a kiss, but just before our lips touched, the wind kicked up around us. The Strangels had arrived. 4 of them landed on the rooftop. 2 males, 2 females. They had glowing eyes, butterfly wings, and medieval clothing. Utterly fantastical. Their leader, one of the women, stepped forward and addressed us in English. She'd been taught our language by Jonas Gentry, the second Pendergast chronicler, who'd gone with the man to the other world and chosen to stay behind. The sun was coming up now and we had to get the aliens out of sight, so we went quickly down into the bank where we could speak freely. Okay, what was your name?
Maevalesse.
Right, sorry. Do you mind if I call you May?
Yes, I do.
Okay. May told us why she and her companions had come here. They had been sent to warn us of a coming catastrophe. Theirs was a deeply spiritual people, and as such were gifted with visions and prophecies. They foresaw a city destroyed. It was not a city of their world, but of ours. This prediction, however, was one the people of Earth had already received and ignored. We'd been told of the nearing cataclysm by a device, the Dreamcatcher, that thing I mentioned earlier and said we'd get back to. Well, here we are. This was a creation of the Cabal. To be understood, you must think of it not as one machine, but as 2, its present and future selves. By the use of tachyon particles and quantum mechanics and other sciencey stuff, information from the future version of the Dreamcatcher can be made available to its present version. Joseph tried to explain all this to the alien woman.
I do not comprehend this.
It's a prophecy machine. There, keep it simple, Joseph.
A machine that foretells the future? This is abominable. This is blasphemy.
You're not wrong.
Joseph was then called away yet again. He didn't want to leave, not with otherworldly guests to host, but he needed this job, and so I convinced him to go. While he was away, I got a call of my own from Sylvia. Station management wanted to have a meeting, which is never good. The ratings had come in, and Circle City Supernatural was once more in decline. We had rebounded from our previous slip, but only briefly. The axe of cancellation loomed above us once more, and the bad news just kept coming. As soon as Joseph returned, I knew something was wrong.
She's dead.
What? Who's dead?
Our informant. They killed her.
Whoa, hang on. How do you know she's dead?
Because I just pulled her body out of a bathtub. They made it look like an accidental OD, but she wasn't using anymore.
Joseph, how do you...
My job. I work for a mortuary service. I'm on call for body removal and transportation.
That's what you've been doing?
It's why I get pulled away at all times of the day and night, and why I always have to go immediately.
Our anonymous informant, who we were then free to reveal as a one Heather Langdon, had been a user and was out making an illegal purchase when she witnessed what she did at the old foundry. This personal detail we had omitted from the interview, along with all other irrelevant information. Even still, Heartland Security had found her and used this unfortunate aspect of Heather's life to stage her death. They couldn't kill Joseph and I, as we were public figures at this point, whose murders would raise too many questions. However, that protection did not extend to Heather. She tried to keep herself in the shadows, but in the shadows is where the Cabal lived. And we'd only learned of her death accidentally, because of Joseph's secret job. They'd murdered Heather for talking to us, for getting us to the foundry. That's when Joseph and I vowed to let them take no more lives. We looked to our new friends. We would get them home, no matter what. The Strangels confirmed what both the Cabal and my partner had assumed, that they'd left the orb behind on their own world and had to wait for someone there to reopen the portal at an appointed time. As it turns out, this rendezvous was the following night. Not much time to formulate a plan. Heartland Security was embedded all around the foundry, waiting to ambush the Strangels. The question was how to get the Cabal away from there. Remember the PX-39? The wormhole tracking device? Well, we knew the guy who invented it. So Joseph put a call in to our friend from Season 1, Dr. Fredrick Hardesty.
You wish for me to create a false signal that will draw the Cabal away from this rendezvous point, yeah?
Yes, exactly. Is it doable?
Recreating the gravitational signature of a wormhole is impossible, Leck. The energy involved is unlike anything we can replicate artificially.
But can you make even the smallest signal, enough to register on the PX-39, enough to confuse them, even if only briefly? We just need a narrow window. That's all it will take to get these people home.
Hardesty could make no promises beyond attempting to do what Joseph had asked. So, unsure if this would even work, the following night we and the Strangels snuck onto a construction site and climbed to the top of an unfinished building, one with a view of the foundry. From there, we watched and waited for Heartland Security to clear out. If Hardesty pulled off the false signal, the operatives would be directed to the new coordinates. It was just a matter of them taking the bait. And they did. We watched as a convoy streamed from the foundry. Now our group was free to head in. We had to be fast, so instead of climbing back down the scaffolding, we flew with the Strangels. While her companions carried my partner, I went with May. I looked to the woman from another world, my life now literally in her hands.
Does it really bother you that I call you May? Actually, I hate it. You do?
We landed safely and moved into the foundry, where our group impatiently awaited the appearance of the portal. But then we heard Heartland Security coming back. A few of them anyway. A fraction of the army we'd watched leave this place had made a sudden return. A squad of armored men and women burst in with Fivecoat.
How did you know we were here?
A hunch. And a pretty good one too, as it turns out. When word came down the wormhole had opened somewhere else in the city, I had my suspicions. But orders are orders. So we all headed to the new coordinates. Along the way, though, I just couldn't shake this feeling that this might be a red herring. I'm a listener of your podcast, remember? I know how you little scamps like to pull tricks. So me and a handful of these good folk here doubled back just to make sure. And guess what? Here you are.
Once he was sure of our ruse, Fivecoat had called his forces back. The rest of his army would be here any minute. The operative was impressed with us, but not surprised. He revealed that he'd let us go last time because of our work in Season 1. By lifting that curse I mentioned earlier, we had apparently cleared the way for the Cabal's own plans for Circle City, but we had spent our only indulgence. Fivecoat had told us not to come back here, and here we were. They were to kill Joseph and I, then capture the Strangels, but the winged people refused to be taken alive if we weren't. So the soldiers put their guns away and drew stun batons instead. We weren't about to go down without a fight, though. These soldiers were highly trained, likely some of the best combatants in the world to have been assigned to a mission like this. So, yeah, they kicked our butts. Bloodied and bruised, we lay vanquished on the floor. But then, when all seemed lost, we felt something in the air. Soon we'd hear it, and sooner we'd see it. The portal was opening. The sudden appearance of the doorway between worlds stunned the soldiers, giving us the chance to regain our feet. The stakes were so much higher than before, and we fought like it.
You have to leave! Get through and close the portal!
They will kill you! Come with us!
We can't! We have to hold them off! Go!
Just go, May! This will all be for nothing if you don't!
I will see you again, my friends. Farewell.
Stop them!
May and the other Strangels leapt into that blazing valley, to the edge of which Joseph and I then took our stand. We had to keep our enemies back until the doorway closed behind us. As we fought them, the rest of Heartland security arrived and stormed the foundry. But they were too late. The portal clapped shut and vanished into the same nothingness from which it had formed. Then, and only then, were my partner and I overcome. We once again lay at the feet of our foes. But this time, victory was ours. Fivecoat was none too pleased. He called to one of his underlings.
You, give me your sidearm. No one will know what you did here tonight. Sorry, Miss Mallyn, but I'll be burying your recorder with you.
This isn't a recorder. This is my phone with a mic attachment. I figured you wouldn't notice. Not with everything going on. This is how we do remotes. You know what those are, right? When a radio station broadcasts on location?
What did you do?
You said you were a fan of Circle City Supernatural. Well, Operative Fivecoat, you just had your own episode.
You, go see if she's lying.
I'm not. Our ratings suck. But I know at least some people are out there listening right now. And go ahead, cut the signal like you did with Zhao. That's only gonna make people believe this really happened. Maybe more so than killing us live on the air.
You...
Fivecoat, shut up. By now, your bosses have tuned in to this, so I'm going to address them directly. Listen to me very carefully. If you want to stay in the shadows, if you want everyone to keep on thinking this is all fake, another part of a fictitious podcast, then you have to let us go. If Joseph and I walk out of here, then everyone will believe that all of this tonight was just more audio theater from a couple of frauds. The Strangels are gone. The portal is closed. The orb is beyond your reach. Cut your losses. You still have plans for this city, right? You're not going to scuttle those plans with any more unwanted attention, are you?
Great speech. You done? Why am I asking? I know you're done.
Just before he ended us, Fivecoat was halted by an outside voice. A superior had radioed his earpiece, telling him to stand down. All of Heartland security was to depart the foundry immediately, and did so. Once they'd left, Joseph and I did the same, hobbling to the street where Sylvia picked us up. With Circle City Supernatural about to be canceled anyway, my producer had helped us weaponize the show against the Cabal. Sylvia described it as going out in a blaze of glory, having done a live remote without prior authorization from station management, what was a terminable violation. But as it turns out, they loved it. The episode had the highest ratings in the station's history. So we'd once again saved the show from cancellation. For now, anyway. We weren't totally out of the woods yet, though. Joseph was still facing eviction, but then another last-minute rescue. This time by a wealthy gentleman whom we'd assisted during the events of Season 1. He'd learned of Joseph's situation and stepped in to help as only he could. Then, in order to wrap up our second season, it was just a matter of moving the bard to his new home. We were busy with this when I wondered aloud what was next for us. So, what now?
What do you mean?
We got the Strangels home, stopped Heartland, saved my radio show, saved the bank, and we just moved the bard to a safe place. It's just, we're all set up for whatever comes next. But what is that? What's our next adventure?
This.
Joseph took me in his arms and, at long last, kissed me. My partner and I don't know what we'll face next, but we'll face it together. Do good, fight evil, repeat.